Welcome back, my friend. It's good to have you back. Today, we're talking about, we're pulling more things from my experience on Mount Kilimanjaro. That's the highest freestanding mountain in the world, over 19,000 feet. And then we're going to bring this back to jiu-jitsu, I think. Just have a topic here. I don't have a way to bring it back. We'll see what we get. My name is Byron, and I recently hiked up Kilimanjaro with my wife and a couple guides. Like I said last time, one guide ended up going to the top, and we had some porters as well. You kind of have to hire a team. That's a requirement. You have to go through a company, and the company will hire the team. It's how they do it over there in Tanzania. You can't hike it alone. But one thing I want to tell you guys about, I thought was interesting. Every day, we start off, you're at camp, maybe not the first day, but first night, they take our pulse oxygen level. So they put this little thing on your finger, and it says, oh, you've got 98% oxygen. That's pretty normal. And then your heart rate's, 65 beats per minute. Perfect. They do that every morning and every night. And they write it down. And they know what's going to happen. It's just how bad it happens. So every night, basically, give or take, we're at a little higher elevation than before. Although sometimes during the daytime, we would hike to like a significantly higher elevation and then come back down a little bit. But they're just trying to monitor. This is just a snapshot of how are you doing. And they also ask you how you feel. You have a headache, or you have no appetite, or you've been throwing up, or whatever. But this is just one way that they judge how you're doing physically. And over the 6.5 days up the mountain, my oxygen levels, they decreased, which was normal, every time, basically. And so I started off in the high 90s, and then low 90s, and then I got into the 80s. Mid 80s showed up, and even some low 80s. And then I think the night that we left from base camp to make a 6-hour hike, basically straight up the mountain and come back down, I think my oxygen levels were in the high 70s. And if they were in the 60s, I would have been told I'm not going. But it was high enough that I could make the summit. My wife, on the other hand, she's a bit of a stud. She would, they would take ours, we just sit in this little tent, and they would check our levels there, and they would, do one then the other. Hers were always higher than mine. And maybe, it was a few points at the beginning, but hers stayed higher than mine, and hers stayed in the 90s. As I'm creeping into the 80s, I'm going low 80s, she's in the 90s still. And that didn't mean that she was definitely nauseous a bit over the course of that week. And she had some other, not feeling good symptoms. But her oxygen was always, higher than mine. And I remember the night that the last time we took it before we made our summit, like I said, mine was in the high 70s. And hers was still in the 90s. I think it was like mid 90s. And we had joked about hers being really good, and I asked our guide, I go, how good is that? He goes, that's really good. That's better than mine. And this gentleman has been up to the mountain over 100 times. And my wife's body is adapting to the altitude far better than mine. And I thought that was interesting. And she did some breathing exercises sometimes and that sort of thing in training for this. And that might have helped. But I think overall, her body handled the altitude better than mine. And it handled the altitude better than our guide. And it handled the altitude better than, people our guide was familiar with. She could do a significantly higher mountain, I would feel. And I wouldn't be particularly worried that she would get altitude sickness to a dangerous level. She's cranking out those red blood cells, I guess. And the thing about jiu-jitsu is our bodies are different. This probably isn't the best example in the world. I don't allow a lot of pressure on my ribs. I do have a damaged rib, and I don't want it to be sore the next day. I protect my lower back. I don't go inverted. I don't like to be folded in half. I don't like, who does, but some people don't seem to mind it. In straight ankle locks, I tend to kind of, to a degree, enjoy those. Those kind of feels nice on my foot until it doesn't feel nice on my foot anymore. But like, I would never get that sort of a pleasant feeling from a Kimura or from an arm bar or from wrist lock. But when someone's doing ankle lock on my foot, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of nice. That's just how my body and my ankles are. I can't explain that. But your jiu-jitsu, you're going to learn from different people, from your coaches and from other avenues. But you have to mold it to your body. And if you're molding it to, if you're kind of a heavier person or a lighter person, or you're a little bit older, or maybe, you're pre-puberty or whatever, like, that's what you're working with. And so try to alter a little bit to get it to fit what you're doing and what you're able to do. And it's something, we talked about being, the guy being sick last time, and it's uncontrollable. To a degree, you can control your body. My wife did some breathing exercises before we went up the mountain, and she would go running and just refuse to breathe out of her mouth. Nose breathing only, and it would slow her running down, but it would alter her breathing a bit, and it was difficult. I tried that a little bit, and wasn't as disciplined as she was. Maybe that made the big difference. So to a degree, we can control our bodies a bit, but some things are just born with. Her degree of oxygen she carried in her blood, a guide, like, a lot of that's probably genetic. So what do you bring to the table genetically? What do you bring to the table that can be altered? If you're a little bit too heavy, you want to be stronger, that stuff you could change pretty easy. And not necessarily easy, but it's definitely changeable. You're plastic. You could mold yourself. So hopefully you've enjoyed the episode. Think about how your body reacts to jiu-jitsu and how you can get it to react a little bit better. How my body didn't react too great to the mountain, and hers reacted better. Same thing with jiu-jitsu. If you've enjoyed this, check us out on Patreon. We appreciate a monthly pledge. That'd be awesome. And we also have an audiobook you can download. Go to BjjBrick.com and click on the store and look for your first year of BJJ. If you're in your first year of jiu-jitsu, I'd love to help you out there. Anyway, have a great day, my friend, and stay sweaty.